All right, folks, here we are. Welcome aboard to our Traders Talk workshop here this Tuesday, January 10th. Great to see all of our students and members alike inside our live trading room. Brian, we have Elizabeth, John, we have Ron, we have Ravina, Grant, Carol, Allison, all of our students and members alike. Great to see you all there. Great to have all of us back on social media, Facebook Live or YouTube. We're actually doing more of an impromptu Traders Talk simulcast workshop. We normally host this each and every Tuesday inside our live trading room. So great to see new members joining us like Paul and Peter beforehand. We have Imad joining us right now, a new trial member just chatting us. So welcome aboard for any of our new members joining us here. Hey, if there's any questions that you folks have right out the gate, I feel more than free to chat it inside this chat board of ours. But any questions that you have going forward, just during your membership with us as a trial, or even coming from Rob Booker's Hot Sheets group, welcome aboard. But any questions that you folks have, shoot me a quick email, josh@ctutrading.com. Got a bunch to go through, though, obviously, just in advance of this workshop. But I wanted to post that right away for all of us on our social streams and inside our live trading room. So let's hop right to it, folks. Hey, right now this stock SHC is moving. It's pushing up onward right now. This is a stock that we had on our pre-market watch list. It was one that we had on our morning watch list as well. So we could look to go over this in just a moment. I wanted to go over a couple of other trades to begin. This stock has at least now a tighter spread. But early on in the morning, in pre-market and after the open, the spreads were big. The order book was scarce, didn't really have as much volume on it as it does here, at least. So that doesn't necessarily make it like a tradable stock, especially for a newly enrolled student joining us here at CTU. Myself and Fausto teach our students all throughout our curriculum, phases 1, 2, and 3, as far as how to scan the market, and then from that point, knowing what to focus on with each trade. So with that, perhaps we'll jump to the SHC in a moment. But there is a stock that I know a lot of us are pretty familiar with, and we were focused on it early in the morning, at least in the pre-market hours, Bed Bath Beyond. So, hey, this stock was actually coming off of bad news this morning, bad earnings. So this could be a great example for any of our new members joining us because, hey, maybe as a long-term trader, swing trader, or investor, you're more inclined to follow the news, right? Like, hey, if there's a company that came out bad earnings, if they missed their EPS and if they ended up missing their revenue, that's probably not a good stock to trade and buy at least. Look for a run up. I mean, hey, I normally think the same thing, but with Bed Bath Beyond this morning, it was up early in the pre-market, and with that, it was trending upward from 8:45 going into the market open. So one of the key things that I really look for when it comes to following, really any trade, this could be simple to say, folks, but what's the trend of the stock leading into the open? All right, well, I answered that for us here. Leading into the open from 8:45, from 9 o'clock, leading into the opening bell, although it was pretty slow, it was moving up. Okay, so for Leda and Ray and Grant and John and all of our members here, really brief question, folks. We go through the same kind of motions each and every week. When a stock is moving up, what color primarily is on time and sales? The tape. Sam, Ray, Ravina, Wayne, Mark, all saying green. And what do we nickname green as on time and sales? What's the nickname we give it? The technical phrase is that it's filled at the ask, but we nickname it as buying. When a stock is moving up and we see green on the tape, we're quantifying that as buying. Okay, so this Bed Bath Beyond chart I actually mapped out early in the pre-market. These are all lines and levels I plotted going into the market open. So let's actually bring up level 4. I'll bring up Bookmap here, and let's show what Bookmap had, at least heading into the open. All right, so this is Bed Bath Beyond, at least from like 7 o'clock, even earlier, going into the opening bell. Now, what I mainly focus on with Bookmap when it comes to charting my trades going into the morning, well, it's a matter of first focusing in on the dark orange and red lines that stretch across this page. So, right here, like where the stock is moving, the red and green squiggly lines, that's the spread, that's the stock as it's moving up and down. So any lines that are underneath where the stock is moving, if it's underneath, well, that's volume on the bid. That's potential support. Anything above the squiggly lines here where the stock is trading, anything above it, well, that's going to be sell volume. That's going to be resistance on the ask. So let me ask all of us here, for Paul and John and a couple of our new members joining us from Rob Booker's Hot Sheets, perhaps you folks can answer this. At what price levels generally do you see these dark orange and red lines stretch across the page? Might kind of squinch up the price axis there a small bit, but generally, what prices do we see these orange lines go across the page? Joyce with $2. Well, yeah, there's about 26,000 shares on the order book at that price right here. This column COB represents the volume, the actual number of shares that are at each price. So at $2, there was about 26,000. Where else do we see the orange lines, folks, that stretch across the page? Brian says 185 roughly. Yeah, like 185, 186 roughly. It topped off there in pre-market. Then shortly after, we started to see some more volume join and remain roughly at that price, 185, 186. Ravina says 210. Yeah, I mean, that's the boldest, darkest, line of red or orange that we have. So this denotes the largest order that's on the ask, it seems here. So about 122,000 shares are on the ask at that price at $2.10. Okay. So those are all resistance levels for us, at least there. This was support at 162. All right. Now, more or less going into the market open, I had mapped out 180. I was led to believe that 180 was a big volume level that was being traded here in pre-market. Now, I was wrong with that at the end of the day. 180, that here, looking at this, was not the biggest level. But I'll tell you, right at 179, 180, basically right there when the market did open, this became our biggest level to watch on this Bed Bath Beyond trade. So, we teach this all throughout our trading course. Myself in phase 2, I'll call this the opening bell print. Normally, when the stock market opens up for pretty much every trade that we look at, we're going to see a larger transaction that pops up on the time and sales window. On Bookmap here on level 4, it's going to be represented by a dot, a green or red dot that pops up on Bookmap. Now, normally we focus on the color of the dot. Here at the market open, we don't. We focus on the price. We focus on the size. Well, here at the opening bell, it says volume, and it says 197 plus thousand shares. It got filled at 179. So certainly my 180 line became really big because right there at 179, we have a key resistance. So I became focused on that. I became focused on that 180, 179 line I had on my chart. Well, over time, it ended up initially trying to make that move. It popped up. It tried to break above 179 and 180. And much like I often say here, when a stock breaks through such a big level, we should be getting a pretty good reaction right out the gate, right? So if this isn't going to explode and run and pop over that 179 right away, then there is a chance where we'll see it make a sharper pullback, if not even a reversal, and it drops right back down pretty far. So I don't want to be held liable to hold on to this trade just because I thought it was a good entry. So on this position, I jumped in right at 180. I ended up getting out. I closed my trade out at 178. I just thought, hey, if it wasn't going to pop it here, then I could jump back in later on, at the least. Maybe it doesn't make that move at all, and I'll find another stock from our list, from my list at least, that I'll look to try and follow. But with that, this Bed Bath Beyond trade, after it pulled back, it didn't totally break down. It didn't break lower off this iceberg at 170 that popped up. In fact, it coiled back up. It tested 179 again. And when it rebroke above 179, 180, I jumped back in. Led to a new entry on this trade. And much like I was just saying before, if this is such a big level, then we should be getting a pretty good reaction right away. You know what I mean? So, once this ended up popping from 79 up to 92, that was just within a matter of a minute, I think. That's a pretty good start. Now, how big should big be? Like when a stock breaks through a big level, we should be getting a big move shortly after. So how big is big? Well, that's dependent upon the stock price. That's dependent upon the volatility of the trade. For instance, not to go on a tangent, but if I were to look at SHC, early this morning, although it moved up, I thought this was pretty disappointing. I thought this move here within the first 30 minutes was really lackluster. This stock had a much thinner, more spread out order book. So the SHC, I thought, had a better ability to make a more explosive move. It's obviously a lot more expensive than Bed Bath Beyond is, so that's also something to focus on. But given how illiquid this order book was compared to Bed Bath Beyond, I felt like this had more potential to make that explosive pop. This was disappointing. So, you want to judge how big is big based off the stock price, based off the volatility and liquidity of the order book. So on this trade, yeah, I was looking for a move at least up towards 2 to at least make a move up to the next whole number resistance at 2. So I ended up taking half my position out right off that level. As soon as it hit 2, I closed out half my position. So with that, I kept half in to at least, see, can we get an extended run up? Bed Bath Beyond, we famously know, is one of the Reddit Wall Street bet type of meme stocks. And if you're unfamiliar with what that means, you could take a look back at the beginning of 2021. This ended up making a big pop then. It dumped back down. But, that week is where we saw AMC and GameStop and all these other meme type of stocks run. If you're a longtime student of CTU, then you have experience with this. Even if this can make a fraction of the type of run it made for us back then, that's what we look for. So you don't want to have too high expectations, but hey, I took half my trade out right off 2. I kept half in just to have some fun. Is this going to make higher lows off of 2? Is it going to run up and break above 210 and keep pushing up? So over time, I learned it did not really look to make a great continuated move. I was really in this trade for a long time. As it pulled back under 210, I ended up closing the second half of my trade out. It was like at 203 even, as it dragged down right here. Just get out on the second half of the trade. There were other things moving at that point. And really, one thing here at Cyber Trading University, to be very distinct at least, we primarily are day traders here. That does not mean that we hold on to a trade from market open to market close and then sell at 4 p.m. On the flip side, for any new members joining us, we're not scalpers. We're not trying to take these micro trades, be in and out within a minute. That's not my cup of tea. So, hey, trading could be relatively quick paced, but I'm not trying to hold on to this Bed Bath Beyond position all throughout the day just because I had a good entry here. Hey, I could get back in on this position if it affords me the chance. If this stock makes another break above 2, perhaps this can make a better trade later on today or above 210 perhaps. So that's just one thing I wanted to make known. Once we have a good entry on the trade, we want to get as much meat off the bone as possible, right? But we don't need to be perfect. We don't need to try and shoot for the stars, nor do we need to be perfect with the trade. So, hey, I kept half my position in just in case if this really decided to run back up. I know it's had some potential in the past to really keep going, but, we normally know off around that 10:15, 10:30 Eastern time slot, hey, that's reversal hour. So this ended up actually reversing a lot earlier than that, but it generally topped off shortly after 10 o'clock. You got to realize when it's time to fold the deck. All right. So, hey, I wanted to start Traders Talk off by going over one stock because, hey, it's something that was easier on the eyes for us to look at because it wasn't on a crazy spread. Looking at level 3 here on the far right side of my platform, this is on a tight spread, a penny spread, very liquid book. So this was tradable for any student of ours. Not like a level 1 stock as we would categorize it, probably like a level 2-ish, but it was very liquid. It was a really good stock for any one of us to try and get their hands on. So, normally in Traders Talk, this workshop, we often go over a couple of big movers and apply our strategy, go through the motions of where the iceberg orders were in pre-market and how those levels could become big levels for after the market opens up. So you could even see here, at least heading into this afternoon, it's making a move back down to 186. That's where we had a little bit of an iceberg order in the pre-market. That was one of the resistance levels that we were calling out. After that, then I'm going to say 179 is the next big level. So, it would really need to hold off that 179 again if we're looking for this to make any sort of run back up, later in the day. All right, so let's go over a couple of different email questions that came in. Of course, we have a lot of new members joining us each and every week, but from Rob Booker's Hot Sheets, we have a lot of folks joining us from there. So we had a bunch of questions get emailed over before. So let me just do that. go through my inbox right now. All right, so first question from Catherine. All right, so this one is more in relation to just basic level 3 and level 4. She is coming from Rob's group and heard that Fausto often uses level 3 to follow iceberg orders, and he's showing level 4 now. So she's a bit confused on what she should be using and getting as a new trader of ours, and ultimately just what is the best thing to focus on. So with that, right, level 3 is a program on my platform, at least here on the far right side. TradeStation is a great platform to have altogether. If you don't have TradeStation, then that's totally fine. You know, as long as you're on a direct access trading platform, Thinkorswim, Interactive Brokers, Webull, Fidelity, you name it. All of them are direct access. I have TradeStation. Okay, TradeStation is really useful because they have a program that we nickname Level 3. So this program on the far right is officially known as the TradeStation Matrix. So this is able to show you all of the buy and sell data for the ECNs that you're looking at. For all of the exchanges or ECNs that you're subscribed to. So if you're on TradeStation, at least, what you could do is go on their website. If you go right to tradestation.com, you can go into like their data and subscription settings. So you can see that these are all the ones that I have checked out: BATS, BATI, Edge A, EdgeX, NASDAQ. So all of those ECNs and exchanges, this matrix will pull the buy and sell data from and really add all of the orders up at each price level. It does the math for you. So in terms of looking for potential support and looking for potential resistance for this stock and any others, well, we'll look at level 3 and we'll see where the largest orders are across the buy side in blue and the sell side in red. So we're going to deem those support and resistance levels respectively. So right now, just briefly, a quick tutorial on this. There seems to be a bit of an order here at 188. But after that, though, I'd say, your next support on this trade seems to be about a 44,000 share order sitting here at $1.80. So that certainly complements 179, the opening bell print that I mentioned before. But looking at level 3 here, because this order is a lot bigger, significantly bigger than the surrounding orders, then I'd say that 180 for now should be a pretty strong support. All right, so that would be a support level. Then a resistance here, if we're looking on the ask side right now, as this is actively moving, there's a couple of orders that stand out that are above 20,000 shares a piece. At 198, the VWAP price, 26,000 shares at 2, 28,000 shares at 205. Now, the thing is that when you're looking at level 3, you want to make sure you're focused on a price level that stands out. That's a lot more distinguished of a price level in terms of size. So, hey, this here at 180 truly stands out compared to everything else around it, right? I mean, it's double the size compared to this one at 175, which is, pretty big still as well. On the ask, none of these orders are genuinely standing out that much more than the others. These 20,000 plus share icebergs, those aren't necessarily icebergs if, that's a common size on the ask. Now, if there was 120,000 shares on the ask at a particular price, well, that trumps every other, size that's out there. So, the bigger, the better. If you're unsure if an order is an iceberg, the way that I teach this at first for any of our new students joining us, if you're unsure, then I'd say that you're pretty sure. Meaning, if you're looking to enter a trade because there might be an iceberg order, you don't know, it maybe could be one, don't risk it. You know what I mean? Like, unless if it genuinely stands out to you that much to say, okay, that's a pretty simple, iceberg to look at there. So, if it's something that genuinely stands out, then certainly I'd, give you some good leeway to try and focus on that price as a clear entry or exit level. From Anup, really briefly, if you are sharing, I cannot see, so I'll just tell them to do a quick log out and back in because I think that will fix it. From Sam asking in the chat board now as well, how many different ECNs are there? So I know there's the NASDAQ ECN, there's the Edge A/Edge X, there's the ARCA book, which I don't believe I have access to actually on my TradeStation platform. There's a bunch of different ECNs plus exchanges that you could subscribe to. So you would need to go to TradeStation's website just to get their full list. Now, if you're on Interactive Brokers, if you're using Interactive Brokers, IBKR, they have a program on their platform that is very comparable or the same exact thing as my Matrix. It's called the Book Trader from Interactive Brokers. Now, if you're on TradeStation or Interactive Brokers, this is a program that we give the nickname Level 3 to. So if you contact TradeStation and say, hey, I'd like to get the data for your Level 3, they're going to actually say, hey, we don't have Level 3. This isn't called Level 3. I don't know why they don't call it Level 3. That's just kind of CTU's nickname for these programs. It shows you all of the buy and sell data that you're subscribed to. So it should show you all of the buy and sell data, right? Call it by their respective names. For Interactive Brokers, it's called the Book Trader, and for TradeStation, it's called the Matrix. So if you just ask for the data on those programs, then they'll give it to you. Now, Paul asking, what is Level 3 on Thinkorswim? So Thinkorswim doesn't have a program like the Matrix where these orders are added up at each price level, where they're aggregated and added at each price level. They might have a program like this, but it's unaggregated. It doesn't add all of the ECNs up together at each price. Now, what Thinkorswim has, though, that a lot of brokers don't have right now, including TradeStation, is Thinkorswim has the ability to give you bookmap data as what we nickname Level 4. So if you contact Thinkorswim and specifically ask for the bookmap data, it's about $40 a month. This again is what we nickname Level 4. They've recently launched this over the last year. So honestly, Thinkorswim, they've been a great company and wide known brokerage, right? TD Ameritrade. Before having Level 4, they really weren't the best day trading platform. Transparently enough. Great for charting, great for options. But now that they have this right on their platform, it makes them really like one of the best platforms to use. Them, TradeStation, Interactive Brokers. So if you contact Thinkorswim and just ask for the bookmap data, then they'll be able to talk to you more about that. It will give you pretty much everything that you see here. All right. Now we can go into bookmap a little bit more, but I want to continue with the TradeStation Matrix just for right now. Hey, Level 3 otherwise. Fausto often shows Level 3 in his webinars. He often shows the NASDAQ Book Viewer. Now that's a standalone program that you could subscribe to right from the NASDAQ website. So if you're not on TradeStation, if you're not on Thinkorswim to get bookmap, then what you could do is go right to datastore.nasdaq.com, and you'll be able to subscribe to Level 3, the NASDAQ Book Viewer, for $15 a month. All right. But I'm going to keep on the Matrix just to, keep simple with Traders Talk right now. What we'll actually do is go over just something actively moving right now, not to trade or, really go over a real setup. But, right now, as we're looking at this trade on GSUN, well, actually, as we're talking, there's a 14,000 share order on the bid. It was popping in and out right there at the price 285. Keep your eye focused on this price level. We'll see if that order could pop back up. But that's certainly a larger order, about 14 or so thousand shares, a lot bigger at least compared to everything else that's currently showing. So, if there's a large order on the bid like that, that should generate support. And then otherwise right now, an order like 11,000 shares roughly at 293. That for right now will create a small resistance on this trade, especially when you're looking at the size of the other orders that are nearby, right? When all these orders are 1,000, 700, 3,000, when there's an order of 11, 12, 13,000 shares that are out there or more, it will create that resistance. So we had an order on the bid to generate support at 286, and then a small order on the ask at like $2.93. It's going to be stuck within this range here for a little bit, it seems. Maybe we can kind of just go around to another stock just to kind of cruise around, see what else is out there. Um, Bed Bath Beyond, we had started off with already. SHC. This stock though, it doesn't really have any icebergs out there at the moment, so it's just chopping out at this point. But given how small these orders are, something around 10, 12,000, 15,000 shares, that would genuinely stand out a lot further on this order book compared to an order book like Bed Bath Beyond that we had before, right? We were saying before for Bed Bath Beyond, we had that support off of 180, the 45K, right? All right. So, hey, if you have any other questions, folks, not just for Catherine at the time, but for any one of us, if you have any other questions in relation to level 3 or level 4, let me know. I'm sure I'll be showing level 4 a little bit further in this Trader Stock Workshop. All right. So let's keep going throughout the emails. I got one email I'll save a little bit later on, just kind of asking a little bit more personally about myself and how I came to be at CTU. So I don't want to eat up time right now going over me. We'll save that for the end. So a couple questions that are coming in here briefly. All right, from Ryan. Okay, this is a nice one because a bunch of different questions in this email. So, Ryan had a few questions just prior to watching this in Traders Talk that we're answering now. Can you elaborate a little bit further upon the 3 T's in trading? Fausto mentioned tradable, trend, and trap. So, that's just a catchphrase that we have just in terms of better following a stock throughout the day. We want to make sure that the stock is tradable to begin with. So there is, certain criteria that we teach in our trading course: volume, looking at the liquidity or the spread otherwise, as we were going over on level 3, looking at the speed of the stock, how fast or slow it's moving per minute. So again, I was mentioning before, as a newly enrolled student, at least, a stock like SHC, God bless it, moved up today, but looking at how thin the order book was early in the morning and still is now, there is better trades for a new student of CTU to follow. So, that plays in part with it as well. But in terms of tradable trend trap, okay, is the stock tradable to begin with? Going through that criteria. Trend, is there just a basic trend to the stock? So there might be a stock that's tradable based on what we look for, but if there's no trend to it, then we're not going to bother risking money on it expecting a certain type of move. If there's a stock that's flatlining, then there's no sense of trying to trade it. If there's no activity to it, I'm not expecting for there to be activity to it. You know what I mean? uh, like we were talking about just earlier with Bed Bath Beyond, that was trending upward leading into the open, right? So I'm following a stock moving upward because we're seeing buying, we're seeing active buying pressure at that point. So I'm looking for history to repeat itself because of the trend. Then finally, trap. So I have a dry mouth right now. Trap, that's basically looking at level 3 and level 4, seeing if there's any funny business, looking at the order flow on there, seeing if there's any icebergs that pop up that can create resistance, if there's any icebergs that get pulled on the bid. I don't know if I have a clear example of seeing the rug get pulled. I had one yesterday, but I deleted it off my bookmap page. So, hey, if there's an iceberg on the bid, that would create a potential support. And if a stock is moving up and up and up and up and up, you might happen to have an iceberg order driving that stock upward over time, like helping it push up. Well, if you happen to see that iceberg get pulled from the bid, it's basically like saying what happens when the rug gets pulled. So, in essence, that's part of trap. That's part of something you want to watch for just in case, right? So the trap part's a little bit more in depth because it requires more time for us to go over certain patterns on the order book. We teach this all throughout our phase 1, 2, and 3 courses. If there's something here on bookmap, I'll try and find before we finish up at least. All right. Now there's a bunch of more questions that Ryan had sent over, so let's keep going through them. You had stated that you don't recommend trading within the first 5 minutes of the market opening, yet I noticed you guys do a lot of pre-market trades. Can you just elaborate on that? Absolutely. So, pre-market trading, depending on your broker, could begin as early as 4 a.m. Eastern time. TradeStation for myself opens up at 8 o'clock Eastern time. There is zero need to try and trade at 4 a.m. in the morning, folks, just so you know. Like, if our whole MO is to follow the big money, and there really isn't a whole lot of big money trading until like 8 o'clock, 8:30 Eastern time anyway in the pre-market, doesn't really make much sense for me to try and be up that early just to say I'm trading, you know? So a lot of platforms open up trading at 7 o'clock Eastern time. I'd still say the same thing there. Now, the difference with 7 o'clock is that, there are some stocks coming out with news at that point. So, you're seeing news headlines out. You're going to see some stocks making some moves at that point. There will be more eyeballs on the market, more volume traded going into 8 o'clock, though. So, we open up our trading room 7:30. There are some folks in there earlier. I get in there. Rich gets in there 7:30 Eastern time. We post the list up by 7:45. So we prepare you to trade the 8 o'clock move. The list is out there at 7:45 to prepare you for that 8 o'clock move and onward. Now, after 8 o'clock, there could be some more news that comes out, stocks making a pop or two afterwards. So we're always scanning the market. This is a very timely question because I got off a coaching call with one of my students yesterday, unnamed, and I was going over this with them as well. And they certainly know. They've been around the block with CTU. You don't really want to continue trading pre-market going into the market open. Like by 9 o'clock, 9:15, you should be out. You should be done with your pre-market trading at that point. If you have some for fun shares and you scaled out 75% of your position and you're hoping for one last run at the open, be my guest, as long as you're doing it, intelligently. But I really try and stay out of pre-market trading after 9 o'clock. Why? Because a lot of times at that point for the stocks that ran after 7 o'clock and after 8 o'clock, they're going to begin to tail off sideways going into the open. You're going to see less momentum. You're going to see profit taking on those trades too. So with saying that, not only do you want to give this stock a chance to breathe and relax, you want to give yourself a chance to breathe and relax too. So I timed that obviously pretty comedically, but it's to say, hey, give yourself a chance to just relax, take a sip of water, relax, take a deep breath of air, make sure that you're lined up and prepared for the bull rush that we're about to have at the market open. I don't mean bull rush in the sense of upward, but I mean just like the floodgates opening up at 9:30. We tend to see so much chaos and volume being traded right after 9:30. So we want to make sure that you're prepped up to trade the opening bell. But after the opening bell, we're not just jumping in right away. You still want to see the chaos unfold a little bit. So, for new members joining us, hey, we teach this all throughout our curriculum in terms of making sure that you're prepped up before trading. Hey, for the stocks that we have on our watch list, I'm not trading each and every one of those. I'm really mainly focused on 2 or 3 stocks myself going into the market open. So for those 2 or 3 stocks, well, in the pre-market hours, if I'm not actively trading, that is, I'm actively going through Bookmap and going through level 3 or level 4 otherwise, and planning my morning out accordingly. So like for this morning, the 2 or 3 stocks I took the time to prep today, well, it was BBBY, it was NIO, a stock that I often follow day over day. It wasn't on our main list, but one of my side list plays. And then the stock PRE. It was up big in pre-market at least. So perhaps I can go over this one with you in just a moment as well, just for kind of what I was looking for on this trade. In it right now. So with saying that, actually, let's do that. We'll go over pre while we're at it. I mean, this is just flattened out since I got in just as we started Traders Talk. So that's not really too appealing, not my cup of tea. But, hey, this stock pre, much like Bed Bath Beyond, it was active in pre-market. It was moving at least, and this was coming off of news. So what drew me to this trade more than anything, it's a cheap stock that's up big. Hey, we see this each and every day where there's this, big runner early in the day, whether it's pre-market or after the open. Hey, this can continue. This can make another big move after 9:30, right? Now, you could say that on a bunch of different trades, right? So why does this stand out more? Well, news came out, like we said, but look at this chart. Check out like the daily chart for a second, folks. This is like really interesting to me. All right, so daily chart doesn't look too interesting. I mean, kind of looks like a new IPO dropped off, right? All right, well, let's see if there's any other data here. I'll go to a weekly chart. Yeah, it kind of looks like a new IPO, right? Like kind of like back from May of 22, opened up and dropped. What the hell is that? What the heck happened here? I didn't really dive too deep into this. I didn't go online, look this up, research on Benzinga as to why this happened. But apparently, this stock got either delisted or suspended. Something happened in 2009, like the year 2009. And here we are now in May of 2022, reopening up or getting newly relisted again. Normally, my TradeStation chart doesn't show this like type of gap, though. That's what made this like really interesting to me. It looked very odd to me, but odd means interesting. And interesting means that there's going to be other traders and other eyeballs on this stock eventually. So you know what? It doesn't look that great in pre-market leading into the open. It was like kind of flat, or more than anything, kind of tailing downward heading into the open. All right, well, let me ask us here, Barb and Ravina and Sam and all of us here live, when a stock is trending down, what color primarily shows up on the time and sales window? Red, right? Sam asking, could the company have been bought and gone private? Maybe. To put it more in a blunt regard, when it's this early in the morning, unless if it's at like 8:15 and I caught that, and like if I had a lot of time to try and dive deep in research, then that's one thing. But the closer we get to the market open, let's be more focused on where the levels are, where the iceberg levels are. We'll pull up Bookmap in a moment, folks, where the historical levels are. Now looking at the monthly chart there. For instance, one level historically that I thought could have been a big level, or could be a big level, as the day is not over yet technically. Obviously, this is downward right now still. But there was a doji on the monthly chart back from July, right at $4. I thought 4 could have been a really strong historical level heading into the open today. I marked this as a really big historical level going into the open. But otherwise, though, you're right. When the stock is trending down, we're seeing more red coming in on the tape. And what do we nickname red as, folks? What do we nickname red as, at least here? Technically, it's volume filled at the bid. But red on the tape, we nickname it as selling. So with saying that, well, what happens if history repeats itself? What happens after the market opens up if we happen to see more selling at the same prices that we saw within pre-market? Well, in this case, actually, this ended up just continuing to pull back as soon as the market had opened up. So it resumed its downtrend. All right, well, simple enough. It kind of broke below this whole number price, this bright blue line at $3, right? Let's just call that support for right now. It was holding above that bright blue line at 3. As soon as the market opened up, it broke under it. Okay. When a stock breaks under support, folks, and it drops off from it, we should expect support to initially become resistance. Perfect. Now, here is where I will be transparent. Well, it first popped up to 3, and I'm expecting resistance. But it led me to think, I'm like, ooh, well, I thought it was going to drop off lower, a lot lower. At the time here, it did not, and pushed back up. I'm not going to be perfect with anticipating what a stock is going to do. Literally no human on planet Earth is going to be perfect with anticipating what a stock is going to do. If you're a new member here, I just want you to realize that, hey, myself and Fausto, Rob Booker, any educator within the industry is not going to be perfect with their anticipations of what a stock will do. So I thought it was going to drop off lower at first. It ended up popping back up here at this point, started running up to 3. All right, well, I'm still very hesitant. I'm expecting resistance here at the time. So it popped it held it popped it again. And, it's trying to build a little support here off this darker blue line. I'm thinking, all right, if this could pop over 3 again, I think that there's a chance for an entry. There's a chance. So right here on this white bar, the 1 minute, it snipped above 3. Folks, transparently enough, I jumped in right at $3. Now, much like I teach you, when a stock breaks through a big level, if this is such a big level, then we should be getting a pretty good reaction very soon. So I don't want to hold on any longer than I need to if I'm wrong. It's easy to say here, I was wrong. It ended up pulling back. I ended up getting stopped out right at 296. Very quick exit. Well, I guess I made the right call with at least that exit. Perhaps maybe I shouldn't have gotten in altogether, but that's the easier comment to make in hindsight. What if this ended up holding here and ran all the way up? So every trade begins with the entry, right? Every trade begins with, seeing a stock break through a big level on the way up. So with that, hey, we got to expect a good reaction after. Bed Bath Beyond, it led to that good reaction right away after. That's what you need to expect. Even if it were to pull back down later on, you need to have that good reaction to begin, because otherwise, I mean, this is a simple question to ask and answer, but do you want to get stuck holding on? Right? Now, earlier on this trade, it was trending down and ended up dropping off more later on. Well, let's go over Bookmap here. Let's bring up level 4 here right now, and we'll see where we had potential support. All right, so you tell me, where do we have a dark red line that goes across the screen here on Bookmap? Go from left to right. What price do we have the darkest red or orange line going across the page? A couple of us saying 249, 260, but a few more of us saying 240. Yeah, right here, 240. 100,000 plus shares on the bid, right off of $2.40. This is out there across the majority of the pre-market since just prior to 7:30. So it's not only the size of the order that stands out. I mean, that's 100,000 shares. Meanwhile, everything else here is like, a couple thousand at that, maybe 10,000, 12,000 here. But this clearly is iceberg support at $2.40 for the pre-trade. So earlier this morning, just inside the chat board, just so you folks know, like, this is why we like to always like call this out inside the room. Well, I wrote inside the chat board, and I gave respect to 250. I did give respect to the 50-cent level initially. You always want to focus on 50-cent levels and whole numbers, of course. But, hey, I was saying both. PRE, looking for S at 250, then 240. And I wrote that at 9:48 Eastern time. So, at least from that point, it ended up dropping back down right from there. Now, I took a couple of trades on this, the second one of which I'm still in right now, but the first one I thought was going to make for a great bounce, and that was the better opportunity, in my opinion. Even if this moves up higher now at this point, it's just to say, when you're following a big level for a stock, if it's the first time that level is getting tested on the day, I often say the first test is the best test, right? When a stock breaks above resistance and it runs off of it, resistance should initially become support. Keyword, initially, the first time, right? So here, it's not like this broke above 240 resistance and flew up. It's just that this was pulling back to 240 as a potential iceberg support. Well, right here is still technically the first time it's testing it right there, right? So my best entries to buy a stock, I mean, for Phil and Kathleen, Leda Grant, Carol, you folks are longtime students of CTU, and you hear this each and every week here, right? My best entries to buy a stock are directly after it breaks through a big level going up. Now, that could relate to resistance. That could relate to Bed Bath Beyond breaking over and above that 179 resistance that I looked at. If I'm looking for support here on this trade, if I'm expecting a bounce, if I'm gunning for a bounce, I don't want to catch the falling knife. I don't want to just buy this on the bid, place a buy order out there at 241, kick my feet up, and okay, it's going to hold. It should hold, right? I mean, that's like the same thing as going short as a stock is running up, right? So obviously that's not a bright idea. With this trade, what you want to focus on at least is seeing it break under 240 first. Because, hey, if this breaks under 240 and fails to break back above it, then there's no entry based off that simple kind of catchphrase, going with the momentum of it breaking back over the level. So here in this case, we're just looking for it to break under the level. And then as soon as it broke back over the level, that was the first of my 2 entries on this trade. I ended up getting stopped out, though. Unfortunately, this didn't make the move I ultimately wanted at the time. It ended up just failing to break higher off the $2.50 price. And then from there, stop me out, break even. -1. It's a break even trade. But going into Traders Talk, just going into 11 o'clock, I ended up re-entering this. So I'm actually in this right now off 243. I wish this ran up a lot faster, if it's going to run up, at least at this stage, because I had said before, I'm not trying to hold on to a position all throughout the day, especially as we head into dead zone time here, like going into 12 o'clock noon. So as I re-jumped into this trade going into Traders Talk, I really wanted this to run up a lot faster. If it does it now or soon, God bless, but the more it just kind of flattens out here, I think it's eventually just going to break down more. So my stop is set on this trade already at this point. So just got to be careful. All right. So, I was kind of going over a couple of different things here on the pre-trade, answering for Ryan at least, trading the first 5 minutes and trading pre-market, elaborating the difference in the timing of both. A couple more questions from Ryan, just asking, do you discourage trading only one stock for the whole day, or do you recommend trading multiple stocks during the day? This is a very important question. For a new student, I don't want you to be trading more than one stock at a time. But you have to be watching more than one stock at a time. There's a difference between watching and trading, right? But with saying that, until you really get a good grip for our strategy, until you have good screen time in our room, like being active with us for a number of months, until you really have your head on straight with saying, all right, this is what I should expect here, this makes sense there. Unless if you're at that stage, you should not be trading more than one stock at a time. Now, again, though, when it comes to watching more than one stock at a time, yeah, I'd want you to be following a group of stocks, 2, 3, 4 stocks at a time, just because for the one stock that you pick, what if it does nothing? Hey, what if I jump into this trade here and I only watch this for the next hour and a half of my life and this goes sideways? There's got to be other fish out there in the sea for me to catch. So I don't want new students of CTU to actively be trading more than one stock at a time. But, they should be following a group of stocks, 2, 3, 4 stocks at a sitting. Myself, I follow 4 stocks at a time, 3 or 4 stocks at a time. I try not to follow too much. This, it's not like, hey, if you have 16 stocks on your chart, on one screen, that doesn't make you a good trader. Trust me, I've learned. Back in 2015 when I first started teaching for Fausto and being a moderator in this room, I thought, I'd make my life a lot easier having 12 or 16 stocks on the same screen, like mini charts on one monitor. Don't get me wrong, I was like a machine gun making all sorts of different call outs, but I felt like back at that point in 2015, I was overwhelming the hell out of all of our students back then and myself. For all those stocks I was calling out, was I really able to concentrate on one of those trades versus another? So, if you have multiple monitors, great. That's something that's needed in order to follow what we do. And if you have a monitor devoted to a few equities, few charts, perfect. That's what I do as well. But don't overwhelm yourself. Don't try and follow 6, 8, 12. That doesn't make you any good of a trader. All right. So, those are my general thoughts, at least in terms of following more than one stock at a time. All right. Can all stocks be shorted? Not all stocks can be shorted. Your platform oftentimes will signal if a stock is shortable to you or not, if it's hard to borrow or if it's easy to borrow. Thinkorswim outright will tell you if it's easy to borrow or hard to borrow or even none to borrow. Here you could see on my TradeStation platform for pre, it says next to the ticker, HB in parentheses, that means hard to borrow. So you would need to check with your platform, with TradeStation here, to see if you're able to actually get the shares to short them. All right. Ryan makes a comment on ETFs just with that really briefly. So with that, folks, unless if you have level 4, I would not want students to be trading in ETFs. if you came into CTU from Rob Booker's group following the cues or following the SPY, if you have your own strategy and if you're consistently profitable with that, stick with it. Would never tell you to change habits if you have a winning system, right? But if you're not consistently profitable on the SPY or the cues or the ETFs, don't try and learn how to trade them. If you have level 4, if you have Bookmap, it will make it a lot easier for you to do so. But if you don't have Bookmap, I'd rather you just keep your focus on equities. It trades a lot different looking at level 3 and equity like a stock versus an ETF. All right. In between question from Sam, what does HB and F mean? HB means hard to borrow. F means failed to meet NASDAQ listing requirements, if I'm not mistaken. One thing I'll just briefly do right now as I'm on this. Copy and paste a link inside the chat board right now for all of us inside the room. This is directly from TradeStation's website, but this could help you better understand some of those little abbreviations next to the ticker on my screen, like HB, F, if there's anything else otherwise. The link I posted inside the chat board will give you a little link to that. What about leveraged ETFs? Same thing as ETFs, just an ETF. It's going to make it a lot more difficult to follow the order flow unless if you have Bookmap. So again, if you are consistently profitable trading the S&P or trading the SPY already, stick with it. But if the answer to that question is no, are you consistently profitable trading an ETF already? If the answer is no, don't try and be a hero and learn it. And trust me, you're going to have a lot easier of a time following the big money for a stock more than an ETF. A lot of what I advise you folks to do or not do is based off of past experience. So trust me when I say that I've tried and I've went through studies of following ETFs. Again, if you have Bookmap, it gives you that edge. But otherwise, it's going to be a lot tougher to follow big money for an ETF. Generally, would you say TradeStation is a much better platform than Thinkorswim? Since Thinkorswim now has Bookmap data, I really can't say that TradeStation is leaps and bounds better. I'm comfortable on TradeStation, so I'm a bit biased perhaps, but otherwise though, if you're more comfortable on Thinkorswim and if you have Bookmap added onto it, you're in good hands. You're on as good of a platform as you could have. All right. Right now, folks, current time is 11:59, going into 12 o'clock. We're going to run another 10 or 15 minutes here. We got a few more questions to answer, so we're going to keep it going, a little overtime. Would you elaborate why there are 2 time and sales windows? There we go. So you'll notice below my historical chart, daily chart here, that I have 2 separate time and sales windows right here, the 2 that I'm waving here, these 2. So I have 2 because one shows me every transaction that got completed, big and small. And then this one here, the leftward time and sales here, shows transactions greater than 1,000 shares. This is just how I've had my platform for so long now. So I'm accustomed to mainly keeping my eyes on this time and sales. I do happen to use this one, though, for stocks that are trading a lot thinner volume out there on the order book, for stocks that are moving a lot faster, and stocks that are trading a little less liquidity out there on the book. So a stock like SHC would be a little bit more beneficial to read the smaller retail time and sales. What time of the day do you normally expect to see reversals? Had covered that earlier, roughly around 10:15, 10:30. Also, the way I like to teach that is, that's part of like what we teach with the cyber clock. We have a little clock that we sell on our website for a mouse pad and a clock. So, 10:30 is off that reversal time. But the way I teach this, it's, transparent. It's true, but it's kind of funny. It's not like the market makers are sitting out there at their desks and they have like their stopwatch and they're like, oh, 10:30, Fausto Pugliese cyber clock. You know what I mean? If every stock reversed at 10:30, you nor myself would be here on this call, right? So roughly around 10:30. I typically say between 10:15 to 10:30. Sometimes, depending on a healthy market, it could be a little after 10:30, right? So if you're in a trade, you're making money from the market open, and we're getting close to that reversal time, much like we talked about with Bed Bath Beyond. If you waited till 10:30 on the gun for that, you wasted a lot of unrealized profit, right? All right, question from Dario on YouTube joining us here. Welcome aboard, Dario, and any one of us joining us this week on social media asking, what data feed do we need? So, that was asked just a little while ago. So, if you're on TradeStation in particular, I would recommend NASDAQ data package. Out to you. NASDAQ data package number 3. So that will at least get you the NASDAQ ECN data on the matrix. The more data subscriptions that you could add to it, the better. There's a couple others that TradeStation offers for about like 10 or 13 bucks a month to add on. So everyone has their own budget and whatnot, but the more the better. Bookmap is different. So if you have a question on Bookmap, feel more than free to just email me that on the side, and I could answer that to you, answer that for you through email. All right, so that's for Dario or any one of us otherwise there. All right, we're going to keep going just an extra 5 or so minutes, folks. We're going to finish up in just a moment. All right, I think I got Ryan's questions here for the most part. Last one, actually. How do you know when to lower your exposure to a position while trading? Is this based on the expectation the stock may rally or fall further? So if you're asking generally in terms of position sizing, everyone is going to have their own sizing, right? Everyone has their own account when they join CTU. So if one has a larger account size than another, they could technically trade more shares, they could trade a more expensive stock. That's the more important part to me with a bigger account size. If you join CTU and you're already a consistently profitable day trader of stocks, I'd be led to believe that you're going to be more confident to increase your share size over time compared to someone that is not of that experience. Now, one might be confident joining CTU. They may not be a day trader prior to joining us, but they may have 20, 30, 40 years of overall market experience, trading swings and options, you name it. That experience will take you a long way. It really will. And who am I to say it won't? Because I've been here for 8.5 years now. I'm going to go into a little bit more about myself in a moment. But, hey, there are folks here that have decades worth of experience more than I do. So I'm never disrespecting any experience. It's going to take you a long way. But as a new day trader of stocks, if this is your first go around with day trading equities, I would not want you to be trading a lot of shares at first. Even if you have a larger account size, we all start off on the same square, all this on the same foot, right? Same square one, right? So I would recommend for any new student joining us, even if it's a cheap stock, to trade just 50 shares, 100 shares to get the feel of things at first. Hey, when you started to ride a bicycle as a kid, you fell off the bike more at first than you did over time, right? The same thing applies here. The difference is that our life and our money is on the line here, right? I guess you could say your life is on the line when you're riding a bike, but your money is on the line here. I think you get the point. So we don't want to crash and burn and lose everything that we have when we're more expected to make mistakes initially, right? So that's where you'll hear myself and Fausto preach, like, don't trade a lot of shares. This is a marathon. This is something you're trying to learn and master for the next several years, decades down the line, right? I mean, hey, let's say if you were, relatively young, you're 30, 40, 50 years old, and you're trying to still do this for the next several decades. And if you're doing this now at like 65, 70, you have the time and money to do this. So that's whereas other folks that, are younger, they may not have the time to do this. You may be retired, semi-retired, and you have the time to supplement your income. God bless. But otherwise, though, that's where I say we're all on the same kind of starting point. We don't want to kind of overstep boundaries and overstep, just what we should be doing initially. Because I've had new members join us that are not new members now. They're not members at all now. They quit pretty early on because they blew up their account. So we want you to gain the confidence to say, okay, you know what? Let's trade this on 500 shares. Let's trade this on 1,000 shares over time. Now, when it comes to like timing of the day and how much I'm looking to trade at one point in the day versus another, primetime trading gets my attention the most. From 9:30 to 10:30 in the morning, primetime trading. So that's where I'm not trying to trade a crazy number of shares, be a gunslinger, but that's where I'm trying to make my income, trying to make my day's pay. So that's where I'm trying to trade my normal share lot, 500, 1,000 shares mainly. Heading into this time of the day, I'm scaling back at least 50%, if not more. This time of the day, at this point right now, I will admit, I haven't journaled my trades in a little while because I found my groove. I know my weaknesses, I know my strengths, I know what to watch for throughout my day. So one thing I could at least tell you, I don't have a percentage, but I get back a lot of my profits that I made from the morning as we transition into 11:30, 12 o'clock. At least I lose some of the profits more than I continue to stack up profits. So it doesn't make as much sense for me to be active during the late morning, early afternoon if my winning percentage simply isn't as high as it is during prime time. If that's the case, then I'm not going to be as compelled to keep my share size, my position size, the same as it is from the morning. That's all. All right. Now, last one here, we're going to wrap up at least for right now. This one came in from Michael, more or less just kind of asking because he's coming from Rob Booker's group, Hot Sheets. So, again, coming from Rob Booker's group, folks, we welcome you with open arms. I know it could be a hard adjustment because Rob is just, a huge name in the industry, and you may have been with Rob Booker for a number of years, likely very comfortable with his teaching and likely very hesitant to commit yourself to anyone else's teaching, whether it's Fausto or anyone else. Now, this member Michael has seen Fausto in the past. He's watched him on webinars. He even attended our trial or our trading room as a trial member back a long while ago. 2015, I was still here there, Michael. So you probably don't remember me, but nonetheless, though, Michael was just asking for me to give a little bit more insight as to my trading background, how I came to be with Fausto at CTU. I like this question because, well, not because I like talking about myself, but we have new members joining us here. And like I'd said, hey, you may be very familiar with Rob and used to him, and you may not have the trust yet of, anyone else, Fausto, or some schmo like myself, some nobody that you've never heard before, correct? Let's be truthful, right? If I'm looking to risk my money, not just in the market, or if I'm just looking to spend money on education, I got to have faith and trust in it. So I certainly understand that for any new member joining us here, they're unfamiliar with me personally. They may have seen Fausto. He's been doing it for 30 years, but I'm kind of kept inside this trading room for the last 8 or so years. So, you don't really see me on webinars too frequent, right? You don't see me with Fausto in his introductory to day trading webinars. Perhaps that changes this year. We'll see. But nevertheless, I started with Fausto back in 2014. I came from a real estate background. Prior to that, I was just doing kind of just jobs around Long Island, kind of, I don't want to say minimum wage, but, just not really a real profession. So back around 2011, 2012, I dipped into real estate. I was doing more residential rental sales, residential rentals in New York City, financial district, conveniently enough, Wall Street. I was not focused on the stock market there, but I was focused on a lot of these luxury high-rise rentals in New York City, in financial district. I was working at a good company at the time, but they didn't really have the exclusive properties that I was able to represent solely myself. So long story short, I was kind of swimming upstream with that market. I wasn't doing as well month over month. I was living in Brooklyn at the time with my own apartment. This was back when I was 22. Now I'm 31. So, it's at this point now that I'm I don't know if this is for me. Anyone with a brain, to comedically put it, anyone with a brain would be able to look at a listing that I put out with real estate that charges you a broker's fee. They look at another advertisement, the same building, same apartment. The advertisement's from the building, so they don't charge a fee. What would you pick? I mean, hey, I'm sure that you wouldn't pick the one that pays the fee, right? So I ended up realizing that. I said, you know what? I don't think this is going to work out. I ended up moving back from Brooklyn back to Long Island, New York, back in my parents' house at the time. And I was just looking for a new gig. So I'm on Indeed.com over the summer and into the fall, and I find Cyber Trading University. And the first thing I legitimately thought was this has got to be like a pyramid scheme company. It's got to be, some scam, because I never learned in college, school, anything how to trade the markets. Didn't learn a thing about the stock market economy, really, outside of macroeconomics, mind you. But, in terms of how the stock market works, no one ever taught that in school. So I was pretty reluctant to try and be like a sales rep for Fausto at that point, back like October of 2014. But I join on, and you start hearing stories of traders making this much money per day, that much money per day, and your eyes light up like a Christmas tree. Prior to joining Fausto, I had zero experience with the stock market, didn't know what a short was, didn't know how to short. So ultimately, your eyes light up when you start hearing traders making 5-10 grand a day. And it's like, is this real? If it is, then I need to learn how to do this. So really, to tell the full story behind this, there were a couple of other reps at the time working for Fausto, like same as me. I took the most interest with learning how to trade. The other reps, like, were kind of just doing their job, just 9 to 5, get the paycheck. God bless, right? But I wanted to learn how to do this. Shoot, I really wish I can show you this right now. If there's enough time, I'm going to try and put this up on the screen as we wrap up Traders Talk. I'm going to try and show you an Instagram post I made back from November 9th, 2014. I'm in my parents' house at the time, my childhood house. I posted like a video of myself watching Fausto's class at that point. So I was obsessed. I was obsessed with like learning how to get this right, just trying to master this. And that's important because around 2015, late 2015, Fausto's instructor at the time ended up leaving the company. There's a bit of a fallout there. I'm not going to go further into that, but it's to say that I was kind of the next person up. And I was already at that point pretty fluid with teaching the phase 1 stock course, the beginner stock course. Now, when this fallout happened, I was not ready to teach the intermediate class. This was at the end of 2015. So what I basically did was I took it to the next step. I made this my obsession, my life. I ended up just kind of falling into the classes every weekend inside my basement, which became my home office. So I really made sure the shoes were filled, at least at that point. Looking back on it now that we're in 2023, and that was about 7-8 years ago itself, I was very green at that time to teach. And Fausto made a big risk with giving me the keys to the car that early on to teach folks how to trade the stock market and risk money themselves. But because I was looking to fill the shoes as well as possible, I think that kind of not stunted, that only accelerated my growth that much further. To be further transparent with Bookmap, the more that you trade, you're not going to have as many light bulbs go off over time. There will be fewer and fewer light bulbs that turn on over time, meaning more of those like revolutionary points where you're studying that make you say, why did I not think about that the whole time, right? Well, when you first start learning how to trade, learning how to do anything, you're going to have more of those light bulbs turn on frequently. And fewer and fewer will turn on over time because your learning curve kind of plateaus. My learning curve, of course, accelerated when I wanted to fill those shoes a bit further for Fausto. But when Bookmap came out, when Level 4 came out, that really provided that next step. More light bulbs turned on in the last 3+ years than they have the 4 or 5 years prior, really. So, that's basically kind of my upbringing to where I'm at now. I've been trading live with Fausto since early October, early 2015. I started with Fausto in October of 14, but early in 15, I started trading. It did not go well at first. I ended up going back to Sim. It's not like I blew up this giant account, and I don't really have a sexy story for all of us outside of just saying I started off with Fausto as a sales rep, and I became obsessed with trading and then teaching all of this together. But I've been doing this with Fausto now for about 8.5 years. I kind of consider this, if anyone's a golf aficionado here, it's like kind of waking up every morning onto a brand new set of 18. It's a different course every single morning, different stocks that we're trading each and every day. So, it's a brand new set of 18 basically that you're waking up to. All right, folks. So with that, we're going to finish up. I guess last question from Leda. Do you get any sleep? I've gotten more sleep recently. I've tried. Last year, not so much. We're going to make it more of a resolution this year. Kareem saying, I really want to do this as well. Well, I'll tell you what, Kareem, you got a couple of options. First and foremost, if you're interested in continuing us here, whether it be today, tomorrow, next week, you name it, just go right down to the link on the blue banner below right there. It just popped up on the bottom of the stream right there. You could sign up for a week-long trial inside our live trading room. If you have any hesitancy prior to joining us, I always like to post my email here at the end of these streams. We always are on every weekday at 9 a.m. Eastern and at 2:30 Eastern. So I'll be back on here for YouTube this afternoon at 2:30. But any questions that you have prior to joining us inside our live trading room, feel more than free to send me a quick email right at josh@ctutrading.com. But with that in mind, folks, hey, we're going to keep the call outs going. We'll see if there's anything else out there making a strong move. Let's check out that pre-trade again. It's like kind of just laying flat. So I'm more hoping now than anything that this ends up blasting above 250 and makes a stronger, run back up. But otherwise, there could be a couple of good plays ahead. I mean, the SHC trade looks like it cooled off a bit. It still technically hasn't truly made that lower low. So, if 17 holds as support, perhaps that could lead to another rally later on today. But hey, we're going to keep the call outs going, folks. Again, we'll be back on social media at least later on this afternoon, right at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Talk to you folks soon. Take care.